Hello everyone! Welcome to the 2023 edition of the Angry Birds timeline. Yeah, I uploaded the first version of this in 2023, aka, well, not necessarily this year. It's New Year's, Happy New Year, everyone, so, this is just gonna be me explaining the updated Angry Birds timeline for you, based on yesterday's theory, as promised. So, without further ado, here we go. Our story starts with the Melody comic, many years ago. What year, I'm not entirely sure, and I am working on a theory suggesting when Angry Birds takes place, which will come out eventually, trust me. But it starts out with the Melody comic, where Melody is, and due to being surrounded by music her entire life, she eventually gets singing powers, where she can suck up and spit out any object through singing. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, Melody thought it was so cool, she decides to go on tour all around the world to let everyone know about it. Sounds pretty dangerous, but whatever. Maybe she can control it somehow. Well, eventually, the pigs hear about these shows, and decide to go to one of them. And eventually, the pigs on one of the shows find the eggs just kind of lying around there. They decide to steal them, to take them to their king for food or whatever. But I mean, it's the bird's eggs. It's literally how their children are born. So, Melody does not want this to happen. It starts a war between the birds and the pigs. The war is pretty crazy. There's tons of pigs out there with tons of ways to get their eggs. However, the birds are pretty smart. They've learned to hide their eggs away from the pigs where they can't get them. Eventually, these eggs turn golden and contain memories of the war rather than their young. However, smart as the birds may seem, the pigs do eventually end up eating a lot of eggs, and the birds lose the war and are banished to Eagle Island. The pigs then take over the rest of the world, while birds evolve into the eagles. However, not realizing they've gained a lot of power upon evolving. Flash forward to many years later, and the pigs are starting to get a bit hungry. See, there's really no more eggs to eat due to the extinction of the birds. So, what's the first thing to do? Well, create a hatchery to bring the Angry Birds back. And thus 6 Angry Birds are created. Stella, Poppy, Luca, Willow, Dahlia, and Gale. But since they're more as meant of a food source, and also they don't want them finding about the war accidentally, they're sent to a remote island, where no other thing to find them, called Golden Island. However, the pigs do eventually find out about this. And a bunch of pigs, led by Handsome Pig, are sent to Golden Island to take it over. However, rather than Handsome Pig finding the crown, Gale finds it and becomes the leader of the pigs. She eventually finds out about the golden eggs, and now they have the power to turn anything they touch into gold. And thus she goes mad with power and craziness and wants to get super rich. So Stella and her friends go out to try and stop her, and they succeed, as we all clearly know. Now, it's at this point the Stella Fox knows that their species numbers are a bit low. However, they do eventually find out about how they were born through the hatchery, and decide to use it. Try and expand their species. A lot of these birds are an inspiration for others, while a bunch of other birds are just kind of there to mess around with. And for the most part, these birds do live on Golden Island, which will be a bit important later. And eventually, through enough messing around, they create the classic flock. For the most part, just Red, Blues, Chuck, Bomb, Metoda, and Terrence. The birds meet the pigs, and for the most part, all seems to go well. But then Metoda and Terrence decide to get married and have eggs. This, unfortunately, is exactly what the pigs wanted. They steal the eggs to bring to their king, and thus the birds get mad and get their eggs back. This starts yet another war between the birds and the pigs, which lasts for a good long time, until in the space universe, we'll get to that, trust me, Leonard finds out about Icebird's X-Droid and its power to travel between universes. Like I said, we'll get into that. He and his piggy army try to steal it from him, but Icebird escapes to the classic universe to get the classic Flap's help, and so they all go to space to save Icebird's X-Droid and defeat all the pigs. Mind you, Angry Birds Space Road is probably still getting updated. I haven't heard any news of when Pig Dipper is coming out. So, but it does say coming soon, so I don't know if it's concluded yet or not. But for the most part, this is still the story I'm going with for this. This may change later, who knows. Anyway, while they're gone, or maybe this was just whenever, I don't know, but 3 important birds get created. Hal, Bubbles, and Silver. It's probably just due to most of the flock being absent, so I decided to create more. And after returning from space, Red and Silver start to fall in love a little. But no eggs, don't worry. Not this version anymore. Well, seems like that's just enough birds where the eagles can finally start attacking again. And they start to destroy Piggy Island. However, this is not only the pigs' home, but also the birds' home. They can't have it be destroyed, so the birds and the pigs team up to defeat the eagles. And by the end of it all, they all become friends. And Mighty Eagle, specifically, becomes a major part of the birds' flock. Zeta? I don't know what's going on with Zeta, though. Let's just all forget the Angry Birds movie 2 ever happened. But don't worry, because King Pig will hopefully let us do that. Because he becomes king after hearing about all these war stories and stuff, and not to say he gets this bored with this little era of peace here. So he decides to force himself to become king, and also banishes Leonard, and also orders an invasion of Golden Island to capture the Angry Birds for eggs. Also because they kind of failed the first time. A lot of Angry Birds are captured, including Silver, and this makes Red depressed. But thankfully, not all birds. Well, the birds actually get captured. For example, Tony is actually able to make it to Finland, where he can live with Santa Claus and not be discovered ever. And the majority of the Stella flock also gets captured, except Stella herself, who actually meets up with our main flock. That's everyone from Red, so it's everyone from Red to Bubbles, plus Stella, but not Silver. And so, these birds decide to all team up together to stop the pigs' invasion. I can't explain the game before. In fact, I have a mini theory that the gameplay of Angry Birds isn't canon, but we'll get into that. Maybe next year. Who knows? But yeah, next up in our timeline is Angry Birds Pop. That's really all you need to know. Okay, so that didn't work. But King Pig still needs a way to lure the Angry Birds over. How does he do this? Well, a giant cake, obviously. The birds are then lured back to Piggy Island where they participate in the race. And eventually they do win the cake. But during all of this, Ross is ordered to steal the eggs. And to make it look like he's participating in the race, he does so using various vehicles and contraptions to steal the eggs and bring them to the king. However, the birds find out about this, get angry, eventually leading to Angry Birds Classic. Maybe a red from another universe has something to do with this, but I don't know. During this time, Angry Birds Seasons also happens. Okay, now to diverge a little and talk a little bit about Iceberg, Angry Birds Space, and Angry Birds Star Wars. Let's start off with Icebird's origins. So basically, in the Dune universe, there was probably this war between birds and pigs, similar to the ancient war I talked about earlier. However, they had one thing that was an Iceberg. He's a pretty smart young bird, and he creates, or at least summons, or does something involving the spirit birds to help bring peace everywhere. They reward Iceberg with a special asteroid to allow him to travel the multiverse and help bring peace to other dimensions as well. Well, one of these universes camping is Star Wars, where eventually the pork side finds out about Iceberg's asteroid, and they decide to call it the Egg, probably because they don't want people finding out about the lore. Too late! Yeah, they want to use this power to rule the galaxy. So the bird side tries to stop them from doing so. However, something Revenge of the Sith, Redkin turns to the pork side, and unfortunately, the pork side wins, and this happens. And thus, the mad hunt for Icebird's asteroid begins, until eventually, they find him. Luckily, Icebird knows exactly what to do, and goes back to the classic universe to get help. Unfortunately, the pigs follow through, and steal not only Icebird's asteroid, but the Angry Bird's eggs as well. So, Icebird and the Angry Birds team up once again, chase after the pigs, and get their eggs back. Sometime during or after this, not entirely sure when, a bunch of birds, and seeing the classic thought, decide, hey, wait a minute, we should join in on this action too, and form a rebel alliance against the Pig Empire. And eventually, after reenacting every Star Wars original trilogy movie, they defeat Emperor Palpatine and bring Redkin back to the bird side. Just like how it happened in Return of the Jedi, too. But that's enough copyright infringement for now. Let's go back to the classic universe. Okay, so during the events of Angry Birds Space, Professor Pig, or someone, I'm still going to assume it's Professor Pig for now, just because reasons I haven't gotten into yet, necessarily, but Professor Pig realizes Red misses Silver a lot, so he decides to create another Silver. However, some of the pigs do interfere a little, and when Silver is born, the pigs decide to train her as one of their own. And after the birds come home from Angry Space, they find out about Silver, at least this new one, who, turns out, is meant to be a bird working for the pigs. Pretty clever. However, Silver eventually realizes that, hey, the birds aren't so bad. The pigs, however, it's in the name, bad piggies. So she joins the bird side. Not the bird side from Star Wars, obviously, but, just in case you were confused. Actually, that might make it a bit more confusing. Never mind. Alright, right after this, Angry Birds 2 happens. Where the pigs steal the eggs again. And so the birds decide enough's enough. And they get Leonard and Melody on their side to help get their eggs back. How they know how to contact Melody, I have no idea. But after this, the world's longest chase proceeds. Believe me, there are way too many levels in Angry Birds 2. But in the middle of this chase, Unicron Pig sends the eggs bar towards Earth. Yeah, this is what I meant by that's enough copyright infringement for now. And this turns the birds and pigs into Angry Birds Transformers characters. The eggs also get turned into egg bots and they start transforming everything into robot stuff. So the birds and pigs have no choice but to team up once again to stop the eggs and defeat Unicron Pig. I know a lot of people say the comics are what's canon and not the gameplay, but I don't know, I haven't actually read the comics, so this is the story I'm going with for now. But I imagine it's still pretty similar to the comics. Because there's no way, right? Anyway, this, however, is another thing I need to update, but I haven't talked to you guys about it yet, so I'm not going to update it just yet. But after this, the birds and pigs end up becoming friends, and thus they can't hurt each other. Or can they? At least not willingly, or whatever. So, they decided to create a tournament where they just kill each other for sport, hopefully keeping the eggs safe. This is where the final part of our timeline takes place. Angry Birds Friends. Where the birds and pigs still fight, though only in weekly tournaments. And Silver starts a lab with Professor Pig, creating power-ups for the birds and pigs to use. And that's the end of our timeline in 2023. Will 2024 be better than this year? Because this year was this year was the worst year for Angry Birds ever. But I did hear a little talk here and there about how Rovio might look back to the classic era in 2024 due to its 15-year anniversary. Now, I don't entirely think that's true, because Rovio's made a lot of promises this year and has yet to fulfill every single one of them. But first impressions are everything. And judging by the Mooncake Festival comic and the Space Ambience uploaded to their YouTube channels, well, just one YouTube channel for now, I'd say it's off to a fairly decent start. Rovio's still a terrible company, though. And I'm not going to entirely trust them on anything. In fact, I don't agree with half the lore. I'm just the messenger. I am trying to think of some way I could possibly make Angry Birds real canon, but for now, it just seems to be retconned entirely. And it kind of sucks. Oh well. Maybe Reloaded will give us a reskin of Rio. That will help us with this. That would be cool to see. Until then, I think that would do it for this video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And you know all that stuff. And I will see you next year.